Welcome to Thrive Thursday. This week is super exciting for me because you all know that I love investments, the investment space, and everything that goes into that. So tonight is Run the Numbers, and we are speaking with a special guest who is a really good friend of mine and is one of the most professional, intelligent. He's done everything in the real estate space, but has created cap fundings. You can find them on Instagram if you type in CAP fundings. We'll also get you their website as well. But he is going to speak to us tonight from his perception. They lend millions and millions and millions of dollars to investors to do fix and flips. So you're going to get to hear from an agent, myself, that invests and not only has buy and holds, but does tons of fix and flips from an agent perspective. And then we also have from a private money lending perspective. So if you guys are interested in working with investors, investing yourself, this is a great call for you. If you're watching this on replay, you can find all of Alex's information in the description and the YouTube description, and any links that we reference to documents, etc., will also be listed down there below. Belize, my assistant, is going to take everyone's email that's on the call. If you came to the live call tonight, I'm going to email you a spreadsheet that you guys can use to evaluate deals that makes you look like a rock star when you're working with investors. You obviously can use it for your personal use as well. We'll touch on it a little bit. Quick reminder that we do have the big AI automation event next Friday, January 23rd in Tampa. If you can drop that link to register in the chat really quick, that would be awesome. Seats are going to be limited. We are going to give away a pair of AI glasses. So that's going to be super exciting. And you do have to have a paid ticket to win the glasses. If you don't want to be entered in that, you can get a free ticket. It includes lunch. It's at a great location. So even if you're within 30 miles of Tampa, I would 100% drive in to check that out. And again, that's next Friday. So without further ado, I'm going to bring my really good friend Alex to join me on the call. Oh,
All
well,
right.
not
Thank
Tyrone.
you. Thank you for the introduction, Betsy. Thanks for everybody jumping on the call with me today. And hopefully we all can get some interesting insight from, my background in private lending, and also as a realtor myself and as a wholesaler and as an investor as well too. I think um, going down the path of working with investors as realtors is extremely valuable. Why? Because they buy a lot of houses, and they buy a lot of houses every year. It's their livelihood. So it's a really good connection if you can make that connection with investors to help, boost your sales and basically your, bottom line for you. So um,
Ready to kick this off, Alex?
yeah, let's start.
And Alex, I wanted to tell them, and I couldn't even remember, how did we first meet? Through one of my partners doing fix and flips?
I think so. I mean, I don't.
It's been a long time. Do you know how long it's been?
I think I met your partner first and then brought you in.
Okay. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So I met the sugar of the partnership,
Of
and
the spice.
then I
Yeah.
was
So
introduced to the
for
spice,
those
and
of
it
you
all
that
made
don't
sense
know,
then.
my fix and flip business is sugar and spice developments. So we've probably done almost 20 deals with Alex. And I was the spice, and then my partner was the sugar in the relationship. And I did all of the um, construction part, resale part. Obviously, I was the real estate agent in the deal, and then she did all of the capital raising, insurance, and all of those other things. So Alex is one of the primary people that I use. We'll talk about how you can use him and how you can connect your clients to him at the end. But I do want you guys to hear a little bit about his journey into real estate, because I think it's important to know what his background is. And I think there's a lot of fraud out there, Alex, and that you can go to some fix and flip event and create some game plan and pay 20 grand for a mentor and then go make millions of dollars in this space. And so if you can kind of walk them through your journey, because you're also a real estate agent technically as well. So I think it's
Yeah.
interesting for them to hear about it.
Yeah, for me, I mean, it was kind of an interesting journey. I was a finance guy at school. I moved out to California and got into corporate finance and treasury. I modeled asset-backed and mortgage-backed securities, so really technical stuff, a lot of statistical stuff. After almost about 10 years of doing that, it was extremely boring. And then I had all my friends back in Orlando, where I grew up, that I went to school with, that were making a ton of money doing this investment real estate game. And they were buying houses themselves, they were wholesaling. And so I just kind of made a leap of faith and kind of wanted to leave the corporate world and jump into setting my own schedule and being my own boss as a real estate professional. And I moved out to Nashville, Tennessee around 2006 and started wholesaling. I got my realtor's license in Tennessee. I started wholesaling in Nashville. I actually did my first investment property where I bought it and fixed it up and sold it in Nashville, Tennessee. And after about 9 months there, I decided coming from California to Nashville was a little bit of a culture shock for me. So I moved to I'm sorry, I moved to Chicago and opened up an office there. Did one winter and decided it was time to come back to Florida and enjoy the
You didn't
weather of
like the
Florida.
Chicago winters, Alex?
Actually, you know what? It was one of the best winters of my life, but I didn't get a lot of stuff done with work. When it's freezing, you don't really work. You just stay inside,
Yeah.
or go out at night. But anyways, that's a whole nother story. So I got back to Orlando around 2007. I transferred my real estate license to Florida, and then started wholesaling 2007. And then the market crashed in 2008, and I stayed with it. It was a really difficult experience because when I got there, I was trying to sell houses in the rougher parts of town for about $130,000, and a year later they were selling for $25,000, $30,000. So it was a kind of a tough transition, but eventually we ended up buying a ton of houses from the auctions, from the foreclosure auctions, the county foreclosure auctions. Learned a lot about short sales, a lot about probate, a lot about marketing and sending out flyers to buy houses direct from sellers, and then working with bank agents, REO agents, and real estate agents as well, and trying to secure deals from them to kind of put under contract and then sell to investors. I mean, probably did over 1,000 transactions from around 2008 to about 2014. But right around 2014, I saw like the foreclosures were starting to burn off. The markets were shifting. A lot of the institutional people were starting to get into the markets and outbidding us at the auctions. And I was buying houses myself, maybe one or two a year, fixing them up and flipping them. And then a couple of my friends were asking me, "Hey, where are you getting your money for your loans?" And I was getting it from my older brother. And they asked me if I could find money from my older brother for them. And I started the business, Capital Fundings, right then, and then kind of just grew it from there. Um, in time, after a couple years of just a few transactions, I met up with some really good investors that backed me, and now we've grown it to about $50 million in originations each year. And those are to just the real estate investor loans, the fix and flip, short-term loans. So it's really, it's been kind of the evolution of my career from just a young, dumb realtor going out there and throwing out a ton of signs, trying to find investors and working with investors and selling them kind of what I thought were deals. Um, and so they could make money, and then sitting there watching them make money and then deciding I want to get in it, making money myself. So it's just kind of evolved, and now I'm primarily full time doing the capital fundings, but I still do investments. I partner with people and do investments. Like I was just telling Chris, we just did an eviction. I think it was 2 days ago. We did the eviction, and so we're still, I still got my feet on the ground and doing a lot of investment stuff myself. So it's been a journey. It's been you kind of get into real estate, and sometimes you don't know exactly where you're going, and you may end up
Exactly.
totally, totally different place than you think you were going.
I think that Alex's story is really cool. Drop a one in the chat if you kind of are shocked by like where he came from and the space that he came from. And if you think that it's interesting, I think it's really cool to hear like, hey, I got a real estate license and I didn't know what I was doing, or I tried to like be in the fix and flip space. I tried to be in, this market, and I moved to this market because I feel like a lot of you guys think like, okay, you're too old or you've been in the game too long to get involved in something like this. And I think that that is like sad for me to see sometimes because everybody can do this on their own and you can use your real estate license as leverage. I do want to touch on, we're going to touch on some advanced stuff, but we're also going to touch on some things that you may think you know that you actually don't. And so the difference between private money and almost like hard money and traditional financing, Alex kind of like break down that for them, especially some things that people may not know about um, private money.
Yeah, in the investment world, everything is pretty much going to be private money, hard money. I use those terms interchangeable. Everyone used to say hard money, and it was kind of negative because the interest rates used to be so high 10, 15 years ago. And so people, the lenders started to shifting to private money. Some people say it means different things. I don't. I think it's pretty much the same thing. But if you're dealing with investors, they're going to have a private lender. They're not going to use the banks. The banks don't lend on distressed properties. The banks can't close quickly. In an investment world, speed is everything. You're presenting yourself as a cash offer so you can secure the deal, maybe a high earnest money deposit so your offer stands out. But everything is based on speed. And if you show somebody that you can do this quickly and close, they're going to come back to you with more deals. So for me, a
Wait, the
private,
only thing I want to say, one thing, Alex, is that the only difference to me between like private lender versus hard money is, to me, Alex will discuss this a little bit on the next slide, and I'll give you guys a couple tips too. Is like, to me, like I have a relationship with Alex that I've built over time, and not that every single person that Alex lends to does he like build a working relationship with, but some larger scaled hard money lender that has loan processors and all of this other stuff. Like, to me, cap funding is a private lending space where you get to really know their staff. There's 4 or 5 of them. You get to know their processes, all these different things, where I would never have that relationship with like a larger hard money lender. And for some people, just so you know, not that Alex is going to be like, no, I wouldn't lend to anybody on this call. Like, Alex does a more extensive screening of the people that he lends to because he has direct relationships with his investors that back his fund, where a lot of the people on the larger hard money companies, they just have a screener over the phone and they know nothing about where that money is coming from. You see what I'm saying, Alex?
yeah, yeah. I mean, private, it's kind of like the difference between maybe
You're
a
a
local
private
lender
guy.
versus a national lender. But private would go to that. It used to be a private lender would be like your uncle or somebody that's like basically kind of like a
True.
handshake, very informal. We're kind of next step up. Everything's going to be a recorded mortgage. I mean, we're following all the rules. We're underwriting the deals, making sure they make sense. But we also provide that relationship where we look at more of ourselves as a partner on our borrower's team. We're gonna check values. We're gonna make sure they're not buying a shit deal. We're gonna make sure that their budgets are right. Anything we can do, and like Chris was checking out our Instagram. Anything we can do to help you become better and more profitable, that's what we want to do as a partner with you. So you're not going to get that in the national space. It's more you may get a regional or local. The largest lender out there, Kiavi, you may get a regional processor that's somebody there that you've got a relationship with that person, but they may not be in your market. So they really don't understand or add much value to you. And, eventually as your realtor, you're working with your investors. So the more people you have on your team, the better you're going to be.
Let me ask you guys a question, all you agents. If you are using private or hard money, do you check financing or cash on the offer that you write? Write something in the chat.
We used to do cash. It
We
may have
got one
evolved. Has
cash,
it
we got
evolved
one
yet where it's
financing.
where it's like because it used to just say financing. And I don't remember if it's like multiple boxes for financing now,
Well, if I'm the buyer
like
and I'm buying a
non-conventional.
property, Um, yeah, you're not wrong, Ashley, for sure, but it definitely depends on what the terms are, right? So if I'm the buyer and Alex is my lender, once I get the go from Alex, I know for a fact that the deal's going to close. So I'm definitely going to write cash because I have already worked with him. I've been vetted. We've already vetted the deal X, Y, and Z. So on the buy side, you obviously want to protect yourself. If you send a deal to a hard money lender and they say, yep, okay, we're good to go, but you know there's 15 steps that have to take place, some hard money lenders still require an appraisal
And
or a
include
BPO.
most actually do now.
Yeah.
All the national ones do because they sell off the loans and it goes to Wall Street, most of them. So, with that, the Wall Street people want some type of appraisal. It's not usually a full-blown appraisal, but most of them want an appraisal.
Now, some people will get mad at the title company if they see a
Title
contract
company
that's
gets
cash.
pissed, and
Yeah.
sometimes if you have a really formal seller's agent, they may get pissed too. But when the title company, usually it's us handling it. Like, hey, sorry, this is what I got. I'm presenting
And if you're
this.
going to close, normally the listing agent and the seller don't care. Like
Yeah.
whether it was cash or private funding or wherever the money comes from, as long as they know they're getting that wire, they don't care. So I do personally write cash. But the one thing I will warn you about is whoever you're borrowing money from, you need to understand their process. And so if you take a look at this screen, from application to funding, I'm going to ask Alex some questions like from day one of submitting a deal. And you need to ensure that whoever you're borrowing money from, if you're doing the fix and flip or you have a client that says, here's my proof of funds on this deal or whatever it is, if you're going to say that it's financing, that you understand what you have to do to get to the closing table. So day one, I call you, Alex, and I'm like, hey, Alex, I want to buy 123 Main Street. And I think that, the purchase price is 175. It's worth 375 when it's done. Rehab's 50,000. Like, what are the steps for a normal person if they as you go through this process?
Yeah, so we would send them to the website to fill out an application to gather that information, like what's the purchase price, rehab, stuff like that. And
And
then
what
we
is the website?
capfund.com, capfund.com.
I'm dropping this in the chat.
Thanks.
Capfund.com.
Yeah. So, once we get that application, we may have a couple questions for the borrower, but what we want to do immediately is put together a term sheet. So we may have some questions from the borrower, like, hey, what's your experience? How many, have you done any investment projects before? Are you a realtor? What's your real estate experience? Anything that can add value that makes us feel a little more comfortable is going to help. That'll reduce the terms, make the terms a little bit better. But so once we get all that, and then we're going to value the property too, what we think it's worth compared to what the borrower thinks it's worth, and then send out that term sheet. And usually the borrower is going to look at it, and if they want to move forward, they'll say, all right, let's move forward. So once we move forward, then we just gather information about the property, the contract, pictures of the property, scope of work, borrowers. We usually gather the driver's license, bank statements, just to make sure they've got enough capital to get the project done. And once we get all that together, then we'll put together that title request to the title
Are you
company.
looking for a credit score in that process?
You know, we're not as formal. If you went to a larger lender, a national lender, they may cut you off at like 640. And that number floats a little depending on the market. It's gone up a little lately because people have some of the lenders have pulled back on their LTVs. So for us, it doesn't matter what we will do a soft pull on the credit, and what we just want to make sure is that if there's anything negative on the credit, it's not current, and then they have an explanation for what was going on. Maybe somebody had some issues, or maybe there's some medical bill issues from a few years back or something. So if it's explainable, then we can move forward. I mean, I've done low FICO loans before. It's going to affect the LTVs and how much you lend them, but I don't have that drawn in the line sand of fixed cutoff like a lot of the national lenders. You call a national lender, hey, I'm at 600. Actually, one of my best lenders is at 620. He's been there for 10 years. He keeps telling me he's going to fix his credit score, but he hasn't. So, it's not as important to me. It's important to understand it and maybe get explanations. But for me, we're going to look at, does the borrower have enough cash to get this done? Does the borrower have any experience? Can they prove that they've done a fix and flip before? And then, also, if you haven't, all right, well, how are you going to get this renovation done? Tell me the story. And then kind of, look at that scope of work, make sure that they know what they're doing. Nowadays, if someone says I'm doing a full rehab on a 1,500 square foot house for 35,000, which was realistic 5 years ago,
It was.
it's just not anymore, So like that raises the flag. So you look for these flags, and then you can kind of decide, all right, we can move forward. And then you
Now, what
move
if
forward.
when they submit, they're like, hey, I am a very rookie investor. However, I've put together a team. So Chris Joda is my real estate agent. John Doe is my contractor. Chris is, listed X number of fix and flips.
Yeah.
John has done X number of renovations. Here's his license number.
Yeah,
Um,
that helps. I would advise all the agents to do that, to be part of the team, to be included on emails with the lenders. Because it does so like, listen, I've got other people in my corner that are going to help me get through this. Sometimes they may partner up or outside of just offering advice, but it does help. And also, if a deal's skinny, sometimes, hey, my agent's going to list it for me at a certain rate. I'm not saying you have to do that, but sometimes it does help out. So, anything that can bring experience and make, your argument better that you're able to get this fix and flip completed, because that's our number one thing. We want to make sure, can you get this project done? We don't want to finish it. And we don't want to hold you up from finishing it. We want to be part of your team that gets it done. But that's our biggest concern is, can you sell this property or can you refinance this property, especially now in today's market?
and after you guys approve the borrower, we'll talk about doing comps and stuff a little bit later. You send out their terms. How fast do you guys close?
I mean, we can close. I would say like 3 to 7 days, in a bind, I can close the next day. For us, though, we got to communicate with the title company. We got to review the title commitment and we got to make sure title's clear. Our attorney has to review it and approve it. So there is some back and forth with the title company. The title company, typically we're waiting on the title company because for us, we have our own mortgage fund, so we make our own decisions. As long as that checks out, the borrower checks out, and the property checks out, we're ready to move forward as long as title is ready, clear, and reviewed by our attorney.
And
And
then
that
we
that's one of
close.
our big selling points. We don't need that third party appraisal. And that's why a lot of people come back to us because, like I said earlier, the investment game is quick, especially if you're buying from a realtor or a wholesaler. A lot of these deals you get them because you're offering to close so quick. So you gotta follow through with that, and you gotta have a lender that can do that.
One of the things that I do when I'm submitting my deal is like I have all of my stuff ready. So when I submit a deal to Alex, um, we're a little bit more informal because we've done this so many times, but in the email is going to include, the address of the property, comps, when they sold, price per square foot. The biggest thing that it's going to include is my scope of work. And so all of you guys out there have to realize that your scope of work is like your Bible. And we're going to break all these things down, but your scope of work needs to match step number 5, which is going to be your rehab draws. And so if I put on my scope of work that I have, $7,500 for HVAC and I have 11,000 for roof, and now I go, okay, Alex, the roof is done. You want to send out an inspector? Like, what do you want to do here? But I'm asking for a $25,000 draw. He's
Yeah.
going to look at my scope of work and be like, but Betsy, you said the roof was 11 and now you're at a 6K deficit. So we'll talk about budgeting for that a little bit. But I do think that if you want a good relationship with your hard money lender, you have to be able to create a scope of work. And if you are not qualified enough to do that, like I can walk any property because I've done this with 156 apartment units at once, ground up construction versus a single family versus a duplex, a triplex, and immediately tell you $5,000 for paint, 3,000 for doors, trim, whatever. there's so many tools now. I mean, Alex, we were doing this way before ChatGPT even existed. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
we had to gauge all this stuff ourselves. But one thing that I would suggest is you familiarize yourself with that, because that is a big deal. And then obviously we have the exit on here. And so timing is important, correct, Alex? Like if I say, this is going to take me 6 months, kind of tell them like what happens if you are not on time.
Well, I mean, that's going to eat into your profitability. The one thing we do when we look at every deal is we have a profitability analysis, and part of that is holding costs. So we're looking at not only, hey, what's this property worth? What's the rehab? What did they buy it at? But then factoring all the holding cost, and we give that to our borrowers, and we have a multiple on there. So, like, let's say the project is uh, showing a $35,000 profit margin, but your holding costs are $10,000 between taxes, insurance, electricity, and your interest payments on your. So that's using an extreme example, but so then your multiple would be 3.5, which means you only have 3.5 months before you're not profitable anymore. So we try to look for deals that have this higher multiple, because the holding costs, and it all ties into your ARV as well too. Everyone as a realtor deals with their clients, and they think it's worth something, and they don't want to come off that price. And if you don't come off that price and your holding costs on a monthly basis, typically most of the time I find the holding costs are more than the amount that they want to come off the price. And if you just came down $5,000 in price, you may start getting traction or offers, and your holding cost may be $6,000, but they don't want to come down 5,000 in price, and they'll sit there for months. So, it all definitely ties into each other, but the holding costs, they really add up, and these a fix and flip's not meant to be profitable if you hold it for a year. I don't see many people in today's market in the last 2 years that are successful if they're doing a flip over a year. It's just too long a time. You can't recover all those costs.
I also think that, that is when you look at one, two, three, four, and five, we touched on a lot of these, but like purchase price versus ARV, me and Alex were talking about this earlier. When I'm listing investor properties, my math is like very, very simple for what someone would pay for a property. So if you guys have your phone and a calculator, very, very, very simple. If you feel that your after repair value is $350,000, multiply that by 72%, which is 252,000. If the rehab is 80, I subtract the rehab. So I'm willing to pay $172,000 for the property. Just like on the retail side, where like, do you guys feel right now in the market? Put a 7 in the chat if it's a yes, that you can write an offer and get something for $10,000 less than ask, like in today's market, in our market. Like we're not in a situation where we have dual offers right now. Sellers are overpriced. So when you're going to project your ARV for your seller, think about that as well. So two things that I would definitely write down is one, I always give myself room of like 10 grand. Like if I think the ARV is really 310, I'm going to put that it's 300.
Hmm.
Just in case we have an issue. The second miscellaneous bucket for me is going to be in my rehab budget. I'm always going to have an additional, depending on how large the rehab is, $5,000 to $10,000 for miscellaneous cost.
Yeah.
Because once you get into the rehab, you are definitely going to have those things. And one of the things too that Alex and I were talking about is location and market demand when we were prepping for this call, because we care about all of you and the knowledge you're going to get. And I will tell you that, because he's local in Orlando, it's nice versus a national lender because he knows his market. And even being in Orlando, to me, like taking the temperature of like Florida and, even within an hour-mile radius of where he's at, it's nice to have a lender be your double check. Because if I send him a deal and he's not going to lend me money on it, do you guys think it's a good deal? Like, why would he not lend me the money? So
Yeah,
when
we've
people
never
use
we've
their own
never lent
cash, they
money.
have no double check.
We've never lent money to a borrower of ours where the deal from our numbers for a fix and flip were negative. where it was a loss. We've never ever done it. And that's just going to show you like, hey, you do have somebody that's looking out for you. You want that in a lender. But yeah, we've never lent money where the profitability analysis says they're going to lose money. Now we've brought it up to them and then we've discussed stuff and we're not always set in stone, but over the years we're like when we project our ARV, actually here I'll look at it real quick. When we project our ARV going into a loan, the sales price of the property, yeah, the sales price of the property compared to what we project our ARV, I'm looking at the numbers right now. It's never been below 100%. It's always, in 2022 is the highest, 115%. So the sales price would be 15% higher than what we projected the ARV. But
And
going
who is
from
spot on, Alex, on their flip
two,
ARVs? Which
2000,
one
yeah,
of your
you're good. You're
clients?
good. But 2024, 2025, 103%. So we were within 3% of our ARV calculation was in 3% of what they ended up selling the property for. So you want that. You want somebody that can really understand what it's going to be worth because then they can look out for you.
And I think that that is, I'm definitely like being funny, but like when you and I talked about like, hey, what are we realistically going to sell something for? Um, there was that hot market where me and my partner made 1.5 million in profits in a little bit over a year fixing and flipping, and our ARVs were always over because I was conservative. The big blue duplex, you guys use that as a case study that I did. Just so you guys know, I put in a basic fix and flip math. I'm not really going to go over this very much because like Alex and I talked about it quite a bit. I want to go into some failures and some hard no's because again, I think that everybody acts like this is an easy game and that it's like some retirement plan. And at the end of the day, it's a job. Like it's a business. Like you're running a business and like you have two choices as an entrepreneur in your own business. You either do something yourself or you pay someone else to do it. And so if you know nothing about investing, you know nothing about fix and flipping, Alex made a great comment to me earlier. It's like, dude, go shadow someone's project, go partner with someone else, go walk through investors' properties. So you kind of have some gauge as to what's going on. Um, but I think one of the reasons why personally, Alex, I was always over when we sold is because I did budget correctly. And I think that's one thing that really kills deals is underestimating your rehab, which is one of the things of what makes a deal a no and red flags that kill deals. Something that will kill your profit, kill your deal. When you underestimate your rehab, you also are not aware of repairs that are needed. And that changes what you have to do versus what you want to do in a property. And so, one of the things that I do from the very beginning when I close on a deal, and I'm actually kind of like mischievous about this while we're under contract, is if I have to put down a 3K non refundable deposit, I get an inspection. And there's two reasons why I do that is because if Alex is selling me a property and he's my wholesaler and he's like, yeah, Betsy, X, Y, and Z, I go walk it and it's tough, right? Because I got to put an offer in. I would rather lose 3 grand if my inspector comes back and says, like, wow, dude, you missed a lot. Like your budget's not 80 grand, it's 100 versus closing on the property, not being able to sell it. Now I got to go back to my lender and say, yeah, the rehab's twice what I thought. My numbers are off. I'll take the 3K loss, man, because I don't even want to go down that road. But the inspection report does two things for you. One, it tells you what you have to do. So you're going to find out what does it pass a 4 point. You're going to find out, is there slow plumbing that you need to go in and evaluate and have a sewer scope done? You're going to find out all of your issues that you have to do. Then you can add what I call your sizzle features. if you want a water feature in the backyard, if you want to put, extra landscaping, if you want to redo all the fencing and you want to add, chandeliers or whatever you're going to do, but you know your what you have to do versus what you want to do to make it sell quicker. And I think, Alex, that's a big mistake that people make is not understanding that and underestimating their rehab.
Yeah, I'm a huge proponent of inspection reports. I like them. It makes my job a little easier, but it just means that, there aren't going to be these unknowns. And I recommend them even after you're done renovating the property, doing an inspection. You can get them for a couple $100. And then that way, in today's market, you don't have many, I'm looking forward to 2026, but in 2025, if you had somebody come through looking at your house, and it was an investment property, you're not getting a ton of at bats, So if you swing and miss on one of those at bats because somebody put something under contract or somebody just walked in your house and says, "Oh man, the toilet isn't hooked up or the sink faucet doesn't have hot water," they're just walking out to the next one because now they've got more, there's more supply, so they can go look at other properties, and so if you do an inspection report when you're done with your renovations, you'll catch all that little stuff that needs to be, finalized before it's ready to actually go on the market and have potential buyers walk through it. So I'm a huge proponent of that. On the front end, it definitely helps you out with your scope of work. Over the years, we've been doing loans for 11 years. I've done over 1,400 loans. And the biggest issue that anyone gets into problems with is liquidity. They don't have enough cash. Either they're overextended because of multiple properties, or they just don't have enough cash to finish a project. Um, and it is harder to go back to the lender after you're done and said, "Hey, I need 50,000 for the renovation," then to come back, 6 months later and say, "I need another 25,000 for the renovation." That's a tougher sell. So you really want to get it up front to make sure you capture everything. And I'd rather overfund a renovation escrow than underfund it all day long. I don't care if you overfund it. I'd rather give you a little extra money up front. That way, you know you're not going to run into any problems.
I think that along with the rehab budget being off is your ARV is off. And we're going to talk a little bit more about comps. But you guys can see, we'll get you a copy of this deck. Poor comps, lack of reserves. Alex just talked about that. Emotional buying. Like, I love this neighborhood. I know this is going to sell. Just because you think that way doesn't mean that that's what the market is showing, that consumers are actually the way that they're thinking. So I think all of that stuff is just like really, really important. Strategies that I think that win is a lot of the stuff that we discussed with you guys, which is, having those built-in margins, building a team. Like, your team of people has to be reliable. And one thing that I want to talk to you about when you're building your team is you have got to vet the people on your team.
Mhm.
You cannot just think that a contractor is great. Like, you cannot think that a real estate agent is awesome. You cannot say, "Oh, wholesalers are honest." You can't not read documents. You can't do any of that. And one major tip is every single time you pay your contractor, you should be getting a lien waiver signed. And you guys can chat GPT it, get a lien waiver that's acceptable for Florida. But I just got off the phone with a client today that is going through a situation where, the contractor didn't pay the subs. The subs, are pissed off. Now the contractor's put a lien on the house. I'm supposed to list the fix and flip. And he's in a situation because even if we get an offer, he can't sell it.
Doesn't matter. Yeah.
And then you have legal issues and all this other stuff. So you really, really have to tighten your ship, which is why, the top people on your team are your lender, your real estate agent. And if that's yourself, that's yourself, your contractor, your tax strategist, and your real estate attorney. Like, those people are how you build a solid team and you consistently rely on that. You have to remember that this is business. So you should ask for references. You should physically call people. "Oh, you worked with Alex? Great. How was that? What was the process? What was the situation?" Even lenders, I asked a couple of my friends with a deal that I did that I didn't do with Alex, and like, the process was horrible. Like getting draws was delayed. It delayed our projects. It was a terrible situation. And so those are all things I think are just really, 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 really important. Alex, let's talk about rookie mistakes to avoid.
I think the biggest one is jumping into it when you're not just enough. Basically, you don't have enough money. I've seen, like I said, just earlier, liquidity is like the biggest thing. So I see a lot of people that, they get excited. They went to a meeting on fix and flips, or they subscribe to something and they're ready to jump in, and they're like, I got just enough to close on the deal. And then they're left like, okay, what do I do now? How do I pay that interest payment? So I think you want to be capitalized, whether that's through yourself, through a partner, however it may be, but you want to be well capitalized and just prepare for kind of the unknowns, because I mean, there's always going to be something that goes wrong in the renovation. There's always going to be something you didn't see. There's the potential of people not showing up, and the project takes a lot longer. So you got to kind of like that contingency of, like you said, Betsy, $5,000, $10,000. It should be at least 10% on your budget, contingency for things to just go wrong, because it will go wrong. You know, Bad partnerships. Betsy, you and I have gone through this together.
Yes.
I think documenting everything as far as partnerships go is very important. Whether they're the beginning or the ending of a partnership, I would do that. I, you know, a lot of investment deals get put out there by wholesalers, and they're trying to push you to make a decision and throw your deposit down instantly because someone else is going to take the deal. The reality is there's a million deals out there and the next one's coming tomorrow. So I would never feel too pressured. I don't like the whole someone's buying it sight unseen. If they want to buy it sight unseen, let them buy it sight unseen. Don't make that mistake. Don't be pressured into this is such a great deal. Um, I've worked with a ton of wholesalers. I've been a wholesaler. I know a lot of wholesalers. They feed me a lot of deals. Um, some are good, and I've seen some that are good that have done bad deals, that have buried people that I've made loans to. Um, so, you really got to like just vet every single deal. You got to understand what it's worth. You got to understand how much you're going to spend on it and how long it's going to take. If you have that and if you've got your team in place, then you should feel pretty confident and you should be excited about this business. But you really, if you're going in blind, just thinking like I saw this on TV and everyone made money, a lot of people lose money. I see it. Some of our loans, we've had one foreclosure in 1,400 loans, but not everybody makes money on their flip. Or there's nothing worse. I've done it before too, where you had a 6 month project and you made $2,000 or $3,000. You're like, okay, that was a huge waste of time. Um,
Right.
we did a house where we were going to renovate it, and it was on the water here in Orlando in Colonial Town, and we decided very quickly that we were going to scrape it and just do a new construction on it, and that was kind of a new venture for us. It took over a year, and the amount of time I spent um, in permitting and in dealing with the city.
Such a
Um,
headache.
at the end of the day, I think there was $2,000 that I gave to my partner because he was the one kind of doing most of the work, the physical work. Um, so it's like, you want to get paid for your time, so you really got to go into it knowing that that your numbers are real and that you can trust your numbers. So, most of it starts with your buy. What are you buying it for and what it's worth?
One of the things I want to really take, the last 10 minutes to discuss with you guys is how you can be investor friendly agents and do like your own deals and attract investors. So one of the things that like you have to get good at is understanding the market, comps, and zoning and property appraiser research. Because one of the biggest mistakes that I see in the multifamily space is you have people buying duplexes and going, oh, cool, like this is a duplex, this is great, whatever. And it's really not in a neighborhood where, and I guess it would be more, quad or above, but like we had a situation where we even went to resell a 6 unit building, and the city said, yeah, it's grandfathered in right now for
Mm.
multifamily, but we've rezoned this whole area residential. So now whoever buys this will never be classified as multifamily again. Well, no one can get a commercial loan on that. Now it has to be a cash buyer who's willing to acquire a property that he knows he can never resell. So you see multiple times in here about exit strategies and this and that. I've had agents on my real estate team sell single family residential homes that have, additional electric meters. They're chopped up into apartments, whatever the situation is. And they get down to closing and there's a financing issue because the appraisal comes back and is like, this can't go just traditional conventional loan or financing. And so, as an agent or an investor yourself, you have to research what you're purchasing. I mean, how many times do we see this, Alex, in this industry?
Yeah, we like to stick to single family because of that, um, residential, because of all the complexities with multifamily and stuff. But I think, being a realtor and having that relationship with an investor, it can be challenging at times because there's so many people trying to present them deals and to get that loyalty from that investor to you as a realtor, that they're going to buy a property that you find or they're going to list with you. It can be challenging, I think, and that's where I think you really have to come across as an expert, to where that investor feels comfortable that you know what you're doing, you understand your values. You're bringing something to the table to them as an investor. Like, listen, I know this area, I know what it's worth, I know how long it'll be on the market. So I think from that standpoint, you do want to, if you haven't done a flip before, if you want to work with investors, I would say do a flip yourself because that's going to be the best way to understand and then talk the lingo.
And
You know,
shadow, if you guys don't have the financing,
yeah, if you don't have
shadow
the finances,
somebody.
shadow, or maybe, if you call enough people and you don't have the finances to do a full deal yourself, I guarantee if you call enough people, you may be able to find a partnership with somebody too. And then you're going to learn everything, from the inside out. So you really have to understand the process, the steps, the costs, the values. You have to understand that if you're trying to work with investors, because investors, they have wholesalers that are trying to sell them deals every day that they can just put a deposit on and close. So you really have to add value. And when I was a realtor doing the wholesale game, I mean, a lot of days I would get on the phone and just call other realtors and, hey, do you have any deals coming up? And I would actually offer them my commissions because maybe the investor would pay me directly. So you can maybe secure that property for your investor. Or, hey, I see your listing's been on the market for, 60 days. You think your buyer's ready to take a reduced price? There's nothing better than getting on the phone. And that's how you really add value to an investor realtor relationship, is to where you can bring them deals that they can buy, and they make money on those. If they make money with you, they're going to come back to you. So, getting on the phone, talking to other realtors, figuring out like, is this one ready to take the price that I need it at? So you've got to understand what price do you need it at based on maybe you went out and looked at the property and you saw, okay, my rehab I think is going to be $60,000. You run it through the formulas. I need to buy, the purchase price must be 225. It's listed at 275. If you're constantly on the phone with that listing agent, there will be a time that they may take 225. And so you're able to then swoop right in when they give you the go and get that deal for your investor. So that's what brings value, I think. Guys, hold on one second. Never mind. Somebody's at my gate. But that's what really brings value as a realtor investor relationship, where you're going out there and you're putting deals that make sense into their lap that they can buy. And then that's what's going to add that value. That's what's going to, give me one second. I got to pause for one second.
I think that it's a situation where at the end of the day, when you guys are working with investors, I'm going to give you two tips. So if you're ready,
Oh yeah, you can.
put ready in the chat.
All
What
right, I'm
tip
back.
number one is, I try to solidify now. Like if you're new with working with investors, you may not be able to do this, but one thing that I do with investors is I have an exclusive relationship. So a lot of the investors that I work with buy and then I help them solidify the deal and then I also resell it. So one thing that investors will do to agents is they will bog down your time if you don't know
Yes.
what you're doing. So
Especially
I
if they're new investors too.
oh yeah,
Yeah.
like they'll give you a
You gotta be
horrible
able
buy
to
box.
identify that.
Yeah, criteria that's crazy. Like I know a rookie investor when they go, "Hey Alex, my buy box is this zip code has to be a 3-2, has to be 1,600 square feet, has to have a brick front." Like to me, I invest in things that make me money.
Yeah.
So, do I prefer block in Florida over wood frame? Of course. But I've done tons of wood frame flips and I've made a shit ton of money off of them. So, at the end of the day, first you have to identify like what type of investors you want to work with. You guys can go to RIA meetups. You guys can go to all these things. What I suggest you do, I've trained you guys on Gamma, which is what my presentation is on right now. You need to have a what I can offer investors packet and you need to solidify that. One of the biggest values of a real estate agent that you guys can provide is if I'm representing Alex on a deal, I'm going to help Alex decide what we're going to do because I'm going to be selling the home on the back end. So, not every neighborhood calls for quartz countertops and over improving properties. Thinking that you're going to get extra money because you made it look good is not going to work out. So you can put all this stuff that you do for your investor clients in a packet. And then it's kind of like what I discussed in class last night. When you say to somebody like, "Hey, Alex, I want to be your go-to agent. I want to have an exclusive relationship with you. I want you to buy deals from me, or I at least want to get the listing if you get the deal from a wholesaler. And here's why, here's what I can offer you." A lot of them are okay with that because you'll get calls from tons of investors that call hundreds of agents every week and blast out text messages and they want to just use and abuse your time. So that's my first tip for you
Yeah.
to not get exhausted.
Yeah. And if you know more than the investor, that's value right there. So like, I have a investor friend of mine here, Jesse Rottinghouse, and he's big on social media as well. But he's an investor himself, but he's also a very successful realtor for Compass, and he just exudes knowledge about investments, and so people reach out to me and say, "Hey, who's your buddy? Can you introduce me to him?" And yeah, I want to pay him 3% to list my properties when they can go to anyone else and get a cheaper listing, maybe a 1% based on, their relationship with a friend or a cousin or something like that. So they're willing to pay for that if you bring value. So I think it's really important that you educate yourself. I mean, I know when I was wholesaling, if we saw a property being renovated, we would just stop and talk to the people, and you pick up some information. You're like, "Oh, yeah, you buy around here. Okay, so now you found somebody that's a potential client of yours if you can find them a deal that they buy." So there's multiple ways to, whether it's over the phone or just driving by, seeing, there's houses everywhere that are being worked on, and a majority of those are investor houses.
I also think that when you guys are moving fast and you're available, like investors want you to be available. The cool thing when you solidify a deal or you solidify a relationship with an investor is that it's not a retail buyer. So, about 3 to 4 of my listings that I do a month, and some of them aren't big, but like I listed a deal in Pensacola, Florida yesterday, put it under contract today, and I'm making $4,500. And, those are the guys that pay me 2.5%. I never even go to the properties. I do everything virtual. I run an inspection report. We do a service of the HVAC. We decide what it's going to be listed at. Some things we just like put on investor lift. Other things we list straight retail on the MLS. But I mean, those guys give me 4 to 5 deals a month. I have a listing of theirs in Winter Garden actually right now, Alex. Now that's a $489,000 listing.
Yeah.
That's 12 grand for me. So if you think about doing multiple deals with investors, now I've had a 10 year relationship with Brett. Brett actually was a wholesaler that I met. And when I first moved to Florida, I didn't have any leads and I didn't know anything about the market. So I would go to RIA events and get with all the wholesalers and say, "Bring me your deals. I'll take the deals to my investors. You got
Yeah.
to pay me $1,500 to $2,000 a transaction. if I brought the deal to the investor, I'd say, now I'm going to manage your rehab and I'm going to charge you 5 grand for that. And then I'm like, okay, and I'm guaranteed the listing and I'll do it for 2%. So I took one transaction and made it a 20 or $25,000 profit margin for myself. And then that's how I built my own team before I started flipping here, because I wanted to know who their contractors were, who were the good insurance agents,
Yeah.
who were all those things. And throughout that, I've made a ton of relationships.
Yeah.
And
And that makes
now,
you you're the expert too now. So
yeah,
people want
like
to come to you because you're the expert.
100%. And so I think that you guys have to really market yourself. We have written here as the investor specialist. Just like if you're a buyer specialist, if you're this, if you're that, we're not going to have enough time to walk through one of my spreadsheets. So we will do another call on it, because I do want to open it up for like Q&A with Alex. But I really feel like you guys should be leveraging your real estate commission as well when you're buying deals. You can do that on even larger multifamily deals and partner with somebody and say, hey, I want 30% equity in a multifamily and I'm going to wrap in, 40, 50 grand of commission. Because when you get up into the multi-million dollar price points with multifamily, that's how my dad started and he has 4,000 doors now.
Jeez.
And so I think that investors can be really great for agents to work with. I think it's tough to get into it initially, but if you take the time to grind and learn, Alex has been an amazing connection for me. And, he's extremely intelligent and he's my go to guy when I'm like, Alex, what do you think is going on in the market? And if you guys are even going into the MLS right now, and looking in RPR where they give you like real value. I looked at one property today that it said it's down $13,000 from last month's value. And so,
Wow.
you have to surround yourself with people that you can, throw these numbers through and go through different things. We'll throw the website in here for Alex one more time. That's really how you communicate with him. But I do think one of the best things, Alex, that we told them all night was you have to become the go-to expert, man. So if somebody
Yeah.
comes to me as an investor, I have contractors that I vetted, I have money guys. Alex is in my phone as Alex Moneyman. Um, Alex put his email in you've been in my phone like that for like 10 years. He put his email in there too. That's a good way to contact him if you want to speak with him. But you got to build a team and you got to become knowledgeable. So
Yeah.
anything else, Alex, you want to tell them?
I would say build your knowledge, whether it's through participating in one yourself or just shadowing one, or like I said, driving by, stop off at work sites, talk to people. You can find deals on Facebook, so you can be that daisy chainer, or that intermediary that you were, Betsy, when you just had buyers. You knew you had some investors looking for houses that made money, maybe in certain areas, and now you've gone out and found those deals, whether that's through a wholesale network. A lot of that stuff's online now as well too, but the wholesalers are still out there. So it's really just kind of immersing yourself in the game and learning. Everyone jumps in and doesn't know anything in the beginning, but you'd be surprised if you do one project, the amount of stuff you learn, the lingo, the process, everything like that. And if you are working with investors, I would vet them right out of the gates. Make sure they have the capital to do it. Make sure they've got a lender. Just make sure they're not somebody that's like, hey, I saw this cool show on TV and I want to be a real estate investor as well. And they're wasting your time by asking you, hey, can you tell me what this deal's worth? Because they're on some wholesaler's email list and they want you to vet, you know, 10, 15, 20 deals a month
Or
that
they're
don't
not going
make
to
any
close
sense.
and they're going to try to wholesale it
Yeah,
too.
so like
You
cut
get a
those
lot
people
of
off
those
quick.
calls.
Yeah, cut those people off quick. And there's so much information out there now in the public records. So like you could talk to somebody, oh yeah, you're an investor. Cool. What do you what's your company's name that you close in? Oh yeah, it's 123 Main Street LLC. Go ahead and look that up. See what they've actually closed on. That'll give you some insight to tell you if they're real or not. Oh yeah, what deals have you listed, before? Tell me about your deals. I want to take a look at your work. And then you can go on MLS and find their deals that they've closed.
And I'm a prop stream fan. Like, I don't know how much you use that, Alex, but like
None.
I use prop stream. I mean, it's $99 a month, but I do so many investment deals for my investors and myself that I use it all the time. With prop stream, you can look up an address, and associated with that seller pulls up all their linked properties throughout the United States. So that's a way to actually kind of interesting for you guys, Alex, to see if they're kind of over leveraged and if they have
Well,
mortgages on them.
I have another system that
Another,
does
yeah,
that.
very
Yeah.
similar, right?
Yeah.
So, when you look that up, you can check out people's situations. And one of the skills working with investors that's the most important as an agent is like you have to be a shark at negotiations and you have to really dig deep. And it's funny because last night we talked about strategies with buyers, calling the listing agent, finding the seller's motivation. There's no harm in writing an offer, but think about this if you're the listing agent. When you write an offer that's low, justify your offer. Like, don't be that agent that says, okay, attached is an offer and it's 60 grand under ask and you don't say anything. Like, you should be saying, here's why and here's the situation. And that's kind of what happened today. We listed this investment property at 199. The agent wrote an offer for 160. And she's like, hey, Betsy, not really sure if you're aware, but like there's people walking down the street smoking pot. The neighbor has a curtain over its door. So how much do you think this is worth? Because like I live in Pensacola. Well, I don't live in Pensacola. So I'm like, well, I'm thinking it's worth like 325. And she's like, yeah, you're 2,200 square feet. Not really bad. We saw your inspection report, but this neighborhood 2 blocks over changes. You're not going to get 425, 450 for this house. So I go back to my guys like, hey, this lady seems educated. Her husband runs a construction business. They've been to the property twice. They're going to close cash. We probably should counter them at 175. And that's $24,000 under ask. Got my guys to say, yep,
Yeah.
that's correct. Probably right. Went back. She signed at 175, 5K money hard, non-refundable, escrow deposit in 1 day, closing. Done. So like that whole negotiation part, and I'm repping the sellers, so same thing if I was repping the buyer.
Yeah.
You got to justify why you're doing something. You can't just say, hey, Alex, you're listed at 250. I'm giving you an offer for 180. What do you think?
Hmm.
It just doesn't work. I want to
Yeah.
open up for some questions that you guys can ask Alex. Like, again, there's no stupid questions, but Alex is a super smart guy. I want to bring him back. He was so good. His hour went by so fast because I want him to go into more some advanced investment strategies as well with you guys. So we'll bring him back in a couple weeks. But what questions do you guys have for Alex?
I got one.
I'm ready, Chris.
So, as a new investor, someone that would be looking to get into this, um, how much, and this may be a silly question, but I don't think any question is a silly question. How much do you think someone would generally need to be able to start this, as a brand new investor?
Well, I mean, it depends on what you're trying to buy. You know, the median price here, the median purchase price that we do at Capital Fundings is like 220. So you're going to need to bring 20% of that plus a little extra. So depending on where you're trying to buy, and Chris, you're here, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, yeah. I didn't know if it's a different Chris, but if you're buying in like Azalea Park, those houses are going for 200,000, so you'd probably want to have at least 50 to $60,000.
50. Okay.
Now, if that's a lot, the prices have definitely gone up, so the down payment's gone up. It like I said, if you start calling family, if you start calling
Yeah.
friends, if you start, going to networking events and just showing that you know what you're talking about, people are going to buy into you and they're going to be willing to take that chance if you don't have that 100 that full amount ready to go right now. So
Mhm.
you got to come up with a partnership, and
Yeah.
that's
Well,
just
what would
like
the
everything.
ARV be, Alex, on the 220? Like, what do you think it's going to sell for?
uh, you know,
400?
two, 220, no. I mean, Orlando's still really competitive. 220 is probably like a 370.
So if
You
you are
know, a
selling
lot of
something for
people on
370
yeah, a lot of
and
people are
Chris,
looking
you
for like
had to
125 to $150,000 spread.
yeah, so like if you're selling for 370, they would have to pay a real estate agent 2.5%, probably at least to list it. So
Mhm.
that's $9,250. To get in on a partnership with somebody, that can be your role that you do as part of the deal. Like
Yeah.
I'm not going to take listing commission. You would pay 10 grand to have that done. There's 10 grand of your contribution to the project off the rip. Like here's the things people don't get about partnerships. If you're going to be my partner, you have to bring something to the table that I'm not going to do, nor am I good at. Or it's got
Yeah.
to save me money. Otherwise, why would I partner with you?
Or time, yeah.
Or time, right?
Yeah.
So, like, again, like if I partnered with Alex on a deal, like Alex is the money guy. I'm going to be the construction girl. Those are going to be our roles in the transaction. And then I'm going to list the property. Now, just so everyone on this call knows, because I manage the constructions in my partnerships, when I listed our properties, I listed them and I took commission. Like that wasn't money that went back into the partnership because that was a separate job that I did. So my biggest piece of advice, Chris, is like the first thing you do is you got to shadow stuff. People will let you walk their renovations, people will let you walk their projects, but you have to bring value to a situation. And to do something by yourself off the rip is very difficult, just in my opinion.
That's not what I would want to do. The scenario I'm thinking is because I have some family members and a couple relationships I've built along the way with some of my clients that have some money and they would love to invest into something. And one of my guys is just spinning his gears, always looking for commercial leases to open up silly convenience stores. And I'm like, you can make so much more money if you just invest it into flipping some real estate. So what I'm trying to figure out is what would be a good proposition to give him to say, hey, invest into some multifamily flips. Let's do this. Obviously, Betsy, you said something about bringing some value to the table. I mean, my value would be to run the numbers for him, right? Obviously, I'm on your team, so I have a little bit of leverage there.
Well, right. But you can't just be a real estate agent and that's what you're bringing to the table because they can find a real estate agent anywhere and buyers agents work for free. Sellers pay commission.
Right.
So it can't just be run the numbers. Like, and most investors, and when you say invest in fix and flips, like fix and flips aren't an investment. Like fix and flips generate cash that most smart, savvy investors take that money. If they start with 50 grand, they want to double it to 100. The 50 always goes back in. And now you have money to go invest in multifamily or whatever you believe in. If you're a Bitcoiner or whatever you want to do, I
Right.
only invest in real estate. That's just me personally,
Mhm.
but I think that that's like the strategy. So if you want to be partnered with somebody, you can't look at it as like I'm the realtor.
No, you have to bring some money to the table.
We have to bring
Well,
money or value.
you don't necessarily have to. I
It's
mean,
not money.
I know somebody that partners with somebody and gets a 50-50 split, and he brings the deal to the table and he says, I'm going to manage the
Correct.
rehab for you. So he found the deal and he's going
Okay.
to manage it for you. These guys, is my friend Jesse, he does it with some people that have deep pockets, and they don't live in Orlando. They live on the outskirts. So he manages the renovation for him. He does everything. He gives them updates. He's giving them market reports because he's going to list it for them and make the commission as well too. And he's not offering any substantial discounts on that listing. So he just brings them the deal, and he's on 20 different wholesaler lists, and he's scouring Facebook and stuff like that looking for it. And then once you start getting into the game, with time, uh, people will put deals in front of you. Once they know you're for real, they're going to call you and be like, "Hey, Chris, do you want this deal?" And then you can
The
call
guys that we
somebody.
bought Big Blue from, Alex, just called me a week ago.
Yeah,
Like, hey, I got 3 deals, blah, 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 blah. And think about this from a wholesaler. Like, we bought multiple deals from those guys. Alex closed those guys. The first question he asked me is like, hey man, you still using that same lender? I go, sure am. And they're like, all right, we got 4 deals coming up and we're going to call you first. Instead of blasting it out to their database,
Yeah.
again, they will take less from me because they know I'm going to close. So that's your value, Chris. And that
Yeah.
is money. It's just not real money, but it's
Yeah.
like it saves them money because where else are they going to get their deals from?
And I could tell you too, there's a ton of value in just doing a deal. You're nothing until you jump into your first deal, right? So once you've got that first deal done, now you've got some credibility, knowledge. So even on the first deal, if you've got somebody like, look, I'm going to handle it. Normally this would be 50-50. I'll put up, maybe if they want something, like tell them you're going to give them a higher payout than what you're going to take, whatever it is. The first step is to really understanding what you're doing, but the next step is to take action because most people look at it, they see it on TV, they read a book, they watch something on YouTube, and then they just say, yeah, I'm going to do that one day. And 10 years goes by and they haven't done it yet. So, it's important to try to, if you have a deal, put it in front of a bunch of people, work out some type of partnership to get it going to where you're involved, where you can make some money and you can get experience. Because
And what's
once you do that
0%
first
of
one, it's going to
zero?
open up a ton of doors.
Yeah. Like
And
what's
the and the
0% of zero? I
yeah,
tell
and the
agents in
thing,
the industry all the time, like, I still try to like prove myself to people. And you do that by showing them that you're worth your value. And, some listing agents think it's insane, but like it's stuff that I tell agents all the time. Like, what gives you the right to walk in and go, well, I've never listed a home, but like my cost to you is 3%. You know what you
yeah,
really should be saying? Hey, I'm going to list your house for free so I can list one and prove myself to the other 20 sellers that then I'm going to get to a place where I can
yeah,
say I deserve 3%. So
yeah,
if you make $1,000 off of a flip in a partnership just to go through the experience, get one on your resume, walk through whatever, $1,000 is better than zero.
Yeah.
And you made something and you're new.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
at the end of the day, like that's what I tell all agents to do is like, hey, if you want to be in a space with people, like just do it. And, make something, have a role, create a team, meet people like Alex that are going to like plug you with other people, go out and like deal with wholesalers, create value and bring value to the table. And now you can say certain things to people. I mean, it's like I tell people all the time, like, I'm not going to do all of this work. I realized, Alex, we've talked about this a lot, like knowing your value in a partnership and making sure that you're getting like what you deserve to get.
Love
Anybody
it.
else before we
Thank
wrap up? You guys stayed late tonight. So anyone else? Jocelyn, Chapin, Magna.
well, everyone's got my contact. Feel free to email me with any questions. Or, if you're thinking of strategies about, getting your career started as an investor, whether that's a realtor working with investors or maybe trying to become an investor yourself, feel free to reach out. It's the one cool thing about my job is, at any time we've got about 200 loans outstanding, and to see that people, a lot of people, Orlando's heavily Spanish. A lot of people come here, and they uh, get into this investment game and then they start succeeding. It's really cool to see those stories, where they're like, hey, man, I just got here from Puerto Rico a year ago and now they're successfully flipping multiple
Yeah.
houses. It's a really cool story. So that's a big part of my job that I actually really enjoy is seeing these people successful and be happy and thankful and really creating wealth. And the cool thing about becoming an investor is that no matter what you're doing, and I always think it's a good supplemental thing, especially in the beginning, to another income source. But the cool thing about becoming an investor is that you're actually learning how to create money. You can generate money, you can generate income. You're not going to work for somebody else and waiting on them to pay you. You actually know how to make money now, and that's a super important, valuable skill. Is how can you make money? So it's something where like scratch, claw, find a way to get it done, but get that first one under your belt, and then you'll be surprised. You know, you're like, oh yeah, I've done a fix and flip, and then everyone like, oh wow, you know, you become the expert in the room now because you've done one, and people will like, especially people with money, that oh yeah, I partnered with Chris on a deal, and then that buddy, what people with a lot of money like. They get jealous of other people making money. They want in too. And then they'll be like, hey, I'd be interested in maybe doing a partnership with you.
Yep.
And then now you've got multiple investors to work with. So it's just a matter of really getting that experience, understanding the market, and just going and doing it. You know,
I
once you
also
do
think
it,
like
you
you
make
prove it
money,
to
you're going to do
yourself
it
that you can
again.
do it, and you make really great relationships, and they're very long lasting. Just like Alex said, people that make money together, those are relationships that usually last a really long time, because the partners can be completely bipolar opposite people, but they have one goal in mind, and then you start creating a legacy for your family. We
Yeah.
have thousands and thousands of apartment doors, and multifamily is my jam. I definitely, Alex, want to do like a multifamily flip conversation and like some other conversations as well. We are going to wrap up for this evening. If you guys can thank Alex for coming. If you are watching this on replay, please look at the description. Our YouTube description has Alex's contact information, his Instagram handle, and all of those things in it. If you are interested in doing expired prospecting, please be on the call next week. I will be a keynote speaker at UWM Mortgage, so I will be in Detroit, but Vince Acuri is going to be leading the class next Thursday. Thank you guys all for coming. Thank you, Alex, so much. And I look forward to seeing every single one of you do your own investment deal. We are out, and I will see you next Thursday.
All right, guys. Thanks everyone for your time. Appreciate it. It's been fun. Hope to hear from some of you too.
Thank you guys.
All right.
Yes, thank you.